Hello, I'm Daddy Druid, and welcome to the new and improved Pulverize build. But first, let me take your attention over here so I can show you the differences between the original build, the nerfed version of the build, and my build. I used an AI image generator to give you an idea of the differences. So here's the Pulverize build on launch.
Bye, have a great time.
Here's the Pulverize build after it was nerfed. And here's my version of the build. But seriously, I'll go through and show you the differences. By the way, this is a leveling build, but we also have the endgame build. So I'm going to cover both of them, but you'll have options for whatever you're doing at the current time. This should by far be the strongest leveling build for Season 2. The name of the game for this build is Overpower. Let me show you why. First off, we've got Blood Boil. This gives us a guaranteed overpower every 20 seconds. Then we get an overpower every 12 seconds from our Pulverize. We'll get another overpower every 16 seconds from Provocation. We get another overpower every 20th kill from Obsidian Slam. We have our 3% base chance to overpower. And then in our endgame build, we have Banished Lord's Talisman, which gives us another guaranteed overpower every 300 spirit we spend. So let's run it back and see what that means. That means we get a guaranteed overpower almost every 5 seconds. A guaranteed overpower every 20th kill, and once we have our amulet, a guaranteed overpower every 300 spirit spent. This means we can overpower almost constantly. That's a lot of overpowers. So what we're going to do is deck ourselves out in all kinds of willpower, and we'll casually grab 400% overpower from our Paragon boards. This build is going to be no joke. They also nerfed crit damage and vulnerable damage this season, so we no longer want to stack those. This gives us a lot more freedom for statting in the way that we want to stat for this build. And one more big thing I almost forgot to mention. Unlike a normal Pulverize build, we don't build into damage to crowd-controlled enemies at all. We don't have to waste slots for Umbral or Quicksand, we don't get less damage against unstoppable enemies, and we don't lose precious boss damage. So I'm going to start you off with the leveling build, but real quick before we do that, take a look at this. This video is sponsored by Dungeon Hunter 6. This is the first game in the Dungeon Hunter franchise since 2015. Dungeon Hunter 6 is a free-to-play mobile ARPG. It has a unique hero collector feature and a stylized fantasy art style. The game features fast hack-and-slash combat with various skills and builds to utilize. It's absolutely free to play. You can download it now by using the link in my description or the QR code on the screen. In Dungeon Hunter 6, when you kill a boss, you're able to loot it, ride it, and summon it to use in battle. You can even shapeshift into them and harness their ultimate power. There's over 100 uniquely designed bosses, and they update the game every month. With optimized graphics, you get a smooth mobile gameplay experience. You can play with guildmates and battle in real-time guild wars, grind with a variety of skill tree options to test your builds, and trade items via the auction system. So what are you waiting for? Download the game for free on Android and iOS. Use my link in the description, or scan the QR code if you're viewing this on a PC. You'll get a special starter pack worth $50 if you use my link. This comes with 10 summoning scrolls, 1 SSR Lieutenant Demonic Wolf, and 1 accessory pack. You can even use your game account to enter the Lucky Spin event and win free prizes like the iPhone 15 Pro Max, a PS5, Apple Watch, and more. All of this starts on October 15th, so what are you waiting for? So starting with the leveling build, we're going to do Aspect of Might for the helmet, Protecting Aspect for the chest, Aspect of the Ursine Horror for the gloves, Aspect of Disobedience for the pants, Ghostwalker Aspect for the boots, and Shockwave Aspect for the weapon. Over on this side, we're going to do Aspect of Retaliation on the amulet, Shepherd's Aspect on ring 1, and Aspect of the Rampaging Werebeast on ring 2. Keep in mind when you're leveling, you may not want to put your Shockwave on your weapon if you don't have a replacement Shockwave ready. So what you can do in that situation is put Shockwave on the amulet temporarily while you're leveling, so that you have more freedom to update your weapon for the extra damage. For our Vampiric abilities, the top 3 are not going to change. So we've got Resilience, Blood Boil, and Hemomancy. For the leveling build, we're using Anticipation and Feed the Coven. Those 2 will get swapped out later. For the gems, we're going to be using Ruby on both the weapon and on the armor. The maximum life is not only good for survivability, but it's also going to add to our overpower damage. And for the weapon, overpower damage is the only thing that can actually contribute to our damage consistently. However, if you have Exploit on, you can change this to Emerald. And that might be what I go with whenever I do the endgame build, because we have a Vampiric ability that gives us more vulnerable uptime. Now, we don't use Vasilis in this build like a traditional Pulverize build. However, it is an option. But since we're not using it, we're going to have Maul for our basic attack. Pulverize is our main source of damage. We've got Debilitating Roar for that damage reduction. The Wolf Companions are the only thing that can be active during our ultimate, except for Hurricane. So we're going to use this for the early game because we've got Shepherd's Aspect to give us some additional damage. But we won't actually use the active on Wolves. We've got Trample for the Unstoppable and the Spirit generation. And then Grizzly Rage is our ultimate, which we're going to be able to have up almost all the time. For the leveling build, we're using Anticipation for our Vampiric power, and this already takes 10 seconds off the cooldown on our ult. Combined with the increased duration of Rampaging Werebeast, we'll have very little downtime from our ultimate. The ultimate's amazing because it gives us damage, damage reduction, Unstoppable, and Fortify generation. For the Spirit Boons, we're doing Wariness, Iron Feather, Energize, Calamity, and Obsidian Slam. For the stats on our gear, on the helmet, we're going Maximum Life, Cooldown Reduction, Willpower, and all stats. You can also use Total Armor here. For the chest armor, we're going to go Maximum Life, Damage Reduction while Fortified, Ranks of Debilitating Roar, and Willpower. You could also go all stats, Damage while Shapeshifted, and multiple other damage or damage reduction options. On the gloves, we're going to go Ranks of Pulverize, Critical Strike Chance, all stats, Willpower, Overpower Damage, or Attack Speed. For the pants, we're going Maximum Life, Damage Reduction while Fortified, all stats, Total Armor while in Werebear form, Willpower, or other damage reduction stats. We can also get Total Armor here. On the boots, we're doing Movement Speed, Spirit Cost Reduction, all stats, and Willpower. For the amulet, we're doing Willpower, Damage Reduction while Fortified, Cooldown Reduction, and Spirit Cost Reduction. The amulet has a lot of things you can get, just make sure they're good for you. On our rings, we're going Maximum Life, Lucky Hit Chance, Overpower Damage, Critical Strike Chance, Physical Damage, Resource Generation, or basically anything that works for you. Just make sure you always get Maximum Life and Critical Strike Chance. As a side note, Mother's Embrace can work for your ring as well. For a weapon, we want to have our Implicit be damage to healthy enemies preferably, but we could also do Overpower damage. As for the stats, we want Willpower, Core Skill damage, all stats, and Overpower damage with Werebear skills. There's quite a few options here that would work, so work with what you get. Critical Strike damage isn't bad, damage to distant enemies isn't bad, vulnerable damage isn't bad. Just make sure the weapon overall has good stuff for you. The skill tree is not too complicated, so I'm just going to scroll through and let you look at it. You can see that we've got Maul, Pulverize, lots of passives. We've got Debilitating Roar maxed out. We've got our Wolf over there. We've got our Trample here. A bunch more passives. Our Ultimate. And then we've got Ursine Strength as our Keystone passive. Technically, if you're having spirit issues, you can go to Earth and Might, but Ursine Strength is more powerful. The only differences between the leveling build and the endgame build is that you're going to take out the points from Wolves and put them into Hurricane. The main reason we're doing that is because when we get our amulet, we're going to be moving Retaliation down to where Shepherd's Aspect is. We'll also be removing Feed the Coven, and the Wolves won't do anything for us anymore. For our Paragon boards, we're going to be grabbing all of the rare nodes in the starter board, and we're going to put the Outmatch Glyph here. Moving up to our second board, we're grabbing Survival Instincts, and we're going to put Exploit here. We're also getting every rare node, except for Zealous. Moving to the left, we're grabbing the Inner Beast board, where we're going to get Dominate, and we're going to get all 4 of the bottom rare nodes. From here we go down, and we're attaching the Ancestral Guidance board. Here we're going to get these 4 rare nodes, and we're also going to grab Spirit. From here we move left, and we're going to grab the Constricting Tendrils board, where we'll grab the 2 rare nodes, as well as the Werebear Glyph. Finally, the last board we're putting on is going to be Lust for Carnage, and we're only coming here for the Undaunted Glyph. This Paragon board's a nice setup because it allows us to maximize our glyphs, as well as getting an obscene amount of overpower. The leveling build and the endgame build have the same Paragon boards. The only change you're going to want to make at all is putting Glyph in the starter board until you get to the second board. Now I'm going to move over to the endgame build. For the endgame build, I'm only going to cover the differences between the 2 builds. For our helmet, we're going to want the Harlequin Crest. For our chest piece, we want Insatiable Fury. On our pants, we're taking Tybalt's Will. And our boots, we're taking Flicker Step. And finally, on our amulet, we're taking Banished Lord's Talisman. Now, it's possible that the stats on the items we don't know yet are going to be bad. And if that ends up being the case, it's possible we might replace these. So we'll have to finagle it once we get there. But the only 2 I have any question about are Tybalt's Will and Flicker Step. Assuming Flicker Step works as intended, we're going to take off Anticipation and we're going to put Accursed Touch on. And we're going to take Feed the Coven off and put on Prey on the Weak. This is going to give us more vulnerable uptime. Now, if Tybalt's Will works as intended, we're going to have extra Spirit generation, so we shouldn't need Energize anymore. If that's the case, we're going to put on Scythe Talons, and if not, we'll just leave Energize on. The only other changes was putting Hurricane in place of Wolves, and possibly changing the gem in the weapon from Ruby to Emerald. Keep in mind that depending on how your resistances balance out, you might take the diamonds off and put Skulls instead. If you're fighting a specific boss, you might want to put one of the other gems. I hope this build gets you hyped for Season 2. I personally am going to be between this and my Moonclaw build, but RNG is going to decide my fate as I level up, and we'll see what happens. But that's all I've got for you for right now, so Daddy Druid out.